All right, what's up everybody? We are making great progress on the car. It's really coming together, but we are still waiting for parts. There are a lot of parts that are still either in the mail, back ordered, can't get a hold of people, whatever the excuse is. But yes, that's like been our biggest holdup. The guys are doing a lot of great fabrication on the car, working with what we got. But yeah, we got a lot of things either being designed off site or we are just waiting for them to ship in. Once again, supply chain is a real thing, but we're gonna get this car done one way or another. We have a great partnership with Garrett Turbos, and they provide us with the absolute best turbos. These things are wicked. We've been running the G series for a couple years now, which is the newest, latest and greatest over the GTX series, which a lot of you guys probably have on your cars. But yeah, the G series, they're even a smaller, more compact turbo that can make a crap ton of horsepower. And we run them on all the cars, the Pro car, the Ultimaniac, and we are now taking the Ultimaniac up to Garrett to put on display for, they have a big meeting. They got a lot of people coming in, for the higher ups, and we got those Garrett's top mount on that package. It's a little different than what we run on the Pro car, where they're kind of down in front, up and on top of the motor. So real cool looking setup. But yeah, Ultimaniac heading up to Garrett to hang out for the day and let all the employees see their hard work, on an absolute monster of a race car. Crap ton, a doo-doo amount of horsepower. That car makes a doo-doo amount of horsepower. That's what I said. I'm sticking to it. That's what I'm saying, so that's like 4-inch. So it sticks up like a full inch above the outlet. Shifter's like right fucking here. So to like fit that thing through there, I think it's just gonna be a little
too tight.
So might as well just like have it back here where it's just gonna be nice and happy.
Right. Yeah, it's gotta be 6 inches from this.
And that is, because where we had it was 8. So that's like exactly right. Leading edge or the center line?
Of what?
Of the
The front edge. There can be 6 inches maximum in between the front edge of the hoop and the center pin of the U-joint.
That's literally like...
That's why I'm like looking at that car and that one's like so far back. It looks like it is, but it's probably not.
So another cool thing about working with some of the old cars is we have components that we can kind of transfer over onto the new one, not just to steal from the other car, but to use as a mock-up, right? So we grabbed the Driveshaft Hoop out of the 370Z, and we use it to kind of space up and measure up for the Driveshaft Hoop on the new Z. So did a very similar design, just a nice thick plate steel that we took across the street to the neighbors. We had them put a 180 bend in it with their machine, and then we just like cut the height, matched it up, welded it in there. And so that's just one more item that we need to pass tech for Formula Drift. So the Driveshaft Hoop actually is located towards the front of the transmission, so that if this U-joint breaks, which we've never had that happen, because we use the Driveshaft shop axles and drive shafts, and so if this was to break or shear or whatever, this will basically fall down and hit the ground. It can become lodged with something on the track. It can actually like pogo the car. So the Driveshaft Hoop is there to catch it, so it just kind of tumbles around and will obviously be destroyed, but it's a safety margin so that you don't have ridiculous incidents like blowing the back end of the car off the ground. So nobody wants to deal with that. Surprised it wasn't being utilized. Y'all are brutalizing me.
Oh yeah,
right up against.
It technically really only needs to be on that side, but why not?
This got put together upside down.
Oh, what?
Why wouldn't you leave it?
No.
That's as sturdy as it gets.
I'm relying on no strap to keep level on something as precise as an engine location.
Versus a hydraulic that may leak.
Don't. I'm doing it.
But don't.
I'm doing it for 2 days.
Well, that side came out a little off.
That's because of the welder. I mean, it definitely pulled, but we have a game plan for that.
All right.
Don't you worry, pretty little heart.
This looks like it's very stout, very stable, but I'll let you do what you want to.
Yeah, that's all you do. Like that. Tops, and then you could do a pretty heavy zing in that, and then do the outside. We'll clean it, and then you're just gonna do your pass into this deep.
So we got the engine mounts officially done, which is great. The motor's being suspended on its own. We actually did them a little bit differently this time than we have in the past. We've done it this way on other applications, but not on one of my pro drift cars, in which the actual engine mounts go to the frame rail, not to the subframe. So in the event that we have to pull the subframe, whether it's a crash or just maintenance, to get under the motor for some reason, get to the oil pan, we can actually drop that cross member out without having to suspend the engine. So the engine is now suspended off of the frame rails, which would stay in place on the car. So it's a real cool setup. We're good, you can walk around, you do what you want.
I had to label my first out, new Z, Sharpie, almost made it through the entire thing.
One Sharpie?
Yeah.
That's why Jimmy's the man, he don't burn up Sharpies. One Sharpie since the beginning of that build. All right, here we go, we're back at it. And of course, first thing we gotta do, gotta take that motor back out. Don't worry, it's gonna go back in, it's gonna come back out, it's gonna go back in, it's gonna happen 95 times. The best part about building a car is you gotta install, remove, reinstall multiple times. This is a funny thing I had to teach my brother when we were putting his car together. Because I was like, all right, let's get that alternator on. He's like, tightening it down like it's going on for good. I'm like, no, we're gonna take it back off. And he's like, for what? I'm like, we're test fitting. We have to measure for the wire, take it back off, and check this and check that. Like, it's a very common thing to, install and remove and then reinstall parts multiple times as you are building a car, because, you gotta remove it to paint the piece, or you gotta, grind a little bit more off, or there's a hose that needs to run behind it or something like that. So it's a lot of test fitting that happens the whole time, and the engine is one of those things as well. When we put the motor in, we knew that it was going to interfere with this brace that runs across the backside of the firewall, and we've actually removed it entirely on previous cars because it's a secondary brace that goes onto the firewall. The main firewall stays intact. However, we wanted to keep it this time because it's going to give more strength to the chassis.
That like a prairie dog with a 50 cal.
Jimmy kind of clearanced it out a little bit, and then once the engine was back out, made a nice plate, filled it back in, looks real factory, it's real clean. So we're gonna have that strength that we're looking for and not cut it all out and remove it to begin with. So I'm pretty pumped on that, and still gonna be able to run our exhaust gas pressure sensors, which is gonna tell us how much back pressure is in the exhaust housing, which you wouldn't really believe it. Most people don't understand this, but there's actually more pressure on the back side of a turbo than the front side typically, because you're having to charge that turbo to spin the front side to suck the air in and compress it and get it into the engine. Typical back pressure is anywhere from 1-to-1 ratio to what you're running into the engine, up to 2-to-1, sometimes even more. I don't know how it works on a diesel, that's probably astronomical numbers, but 2-to-1 is about as much as you want to go on a race motor, because you're creating a lot of pressure on the backside to get a quick spool up. Big power cars are down in the 1-to-1 range because they got a real big turbo, free flowing, and that engine's breathing real good, but it's a little more laggy. So that's one of the things that we use to make sure that we have the right size turbo in there to watch that back pressure flow, and then we can adjust our turbo size from there.
Cheers. Fourth one. Sick.
I would lop them clean flat, right? Because we have the legs. So let's start with that, cut these down, clean them up, and bolt those on there as flat as possible. Yeah. And then we're going to make a crossover tube, and then in that crossover tube, we're gonna have a 16 ORB, or no, I'm sorry, a 20 ORB, which I have. and that'll be welded right to that.
Okay, off of it.
Go off and out.
Okay.
I want to sit the intake manifold on there so we can make sure we got clearance. Might actually have it put a bend in it. No, it's way easier just to have it go straight, and then we can put a 90 here. But then there's gonna be a 90 here as well. So one of them is just gonna have to be a swivel. Is all.
Oh, okay.
That's not the end of the world.
Okay.
Let me go make sure they make a race crimp swivel 90. Staring at freaking fitting part numbers for like 2 days now.
Yeah, probably should have it in there before we make it.
Oh no, I know. No, I want to just start getting it prepped up. So when it goes back in.
Oh, for like the flanges. Yeah.
When it goes, we can do the front ones because we know where that's gonna be. This one's off here, so we can take this, cut that off, and then we're gonna get the. I almost want to do it like, have it like actually roll out and go like this. Because we've done like weird angles like this and all that, but I almost want to like, we'll take a look and see. We'll like look at the old one, but same thing. Like we'll get this thing kind of prepped. So yeah, we will come up and over, and it's gonna lay up here, and then go into here, or it might just cross over this hot part and go up over the strut tower. Another thing we're doing a little differently on the car this time is the water outlet on the back side of the heads. We used to run 2 lines, one out of each head, and then wire them together towards the back of the car. Just a lot of extra line, a lot of extra fittings. So this time we're gonna do it in the way that it basically comes from the factory, where the 2 sides of the heads, the 2 heads on each side come together into one outlet, and then we're gonna run that dash 20 line all the way to the back. So we just got 1 line forward and 1 line back, and that's basically just, simplifies the whole setup, and then we don't have a bunch of extra fittings, a bunch of extra Ys under the car, just less fittings, less failure points, so to speak. And yeah, just like I mentioned, that motor's back in with the transmission for some more fitments, some more testing, some more checking of things. So, and like, when you have those engine mounts and everything designed so easily, and we got old fork chop here, really holding it down, we can just sling that motor in and out with, the help of a couple guys in just a few minutes. So, motor out, do some work, motor back in, check the fit. So, like I said, it's not gonna be the last time the motor goes back in the car before the race one does. You can see the actual bracket is welded to the frame rail instead of running this down to here. So when we had this bracket come down here, it's a little more forward, it's a little more awkward, and then we would have to suspend the engine if we were to drop this cross member out for any reason. So now it's straight to the frame, and it's just a little tube with a bushing in it and a 3-sided bracket welded in. Outside of that, really stoked on how the front end's coming together. We have that intercooler from CNR fitted up on the front, and we're just lining up that tube so we have that straight shot right into our intake manifold. Just having a real clean, easy setup. That also, that intercooler tube is just gonna be captured in between the intercooler and the throttle body, so there's no way for it to blow off, which is awesome. And then we're gonna mount our air intake sensor on that, air intake temperature sensor, I should say, on that, as well as our nitrous jet will go behind the throttle body as to not freeze out the motor, because we think that might have been causing some of our problems last year. So nitrous jet behind the throttle body, air intake before the throttle body, so you get the true air going into it, and also does not get affected by the nitrous cold air being blasted at it. So you kind of got to make sure you have those in the right order. Outside of that, making great progress, and gotta keep after it.